They live this lifestyle.
You want to let me finish here for a second, pal?
He's the most powerful man in wrestling history.
Shut your mouth and let me answer the question, all right?
A master manipulator who's made a career out of never showing weakness.
You know, I'm young and I'm fired up, so I'm trying to defend myself. And now we're in this argument.
Vince, is your empire crumbling?
But behind the scenes, even Vince McMahon has a breaking point.
He was furious about it.
And reality is everybody thinks you're an asshole right now.
Vince McMahon, who you BSing here? You're talking to Bruno Sammartino.
In this video, we count down 5 real-life moments when Vince McMahon snapped.
Came back through the curtain after the match. Vince went ballistic.
That's so unprofessional. You just don't do that.
From backstage arguments to live TV meltdowns and one showdown that left him teetering on the verge of losing control.
I resent the sarcasm. Again,
No, I resent your tone, lady, okay?
And by the time we reach number 1, we'll uncover an altercation so volatile that it didn't just threaten to end WWF careers. It reshaped wrestling history.
In deposition, you can ask about anything. My attorney said, Mr. McMahon, has there ever been...
Did a horrible job. That's the only reason why you were fired. That's it.
The kids are very upset how Mr. McMahon's going to handle the kids.
I almost tipped over in the chair.
So let's get started. It's 1992. The golden era of professional wrestling is fading fast. Controversy has engulfed the WWF. Ratings are slipping, and the company has lost a wave of its biggest stars. With the boom of the 80s well and truly over, the cracks are beginning to show. The date was September the 1st, the location, Hershey, Pennsylvania. With business down and audiences dwindling, Vince McMahon makes the decision to take the world title off the Macho Man. During a televised taping of Superstars, the very same show that saw Yokozuna make his debut, Macho Man is booked to drop the title to Ric Flair.
I do remember that there was quite a lot of, counseling with Vince and closed-door sessions with Vince and Randy and Rick working out their match and getting it all set. And Macho Man was always a steady, solid guy to rely on to put the belt on. Anyway, I just remember whatever. I think I was on the same main event. I might have worked with Papa Shango or somebody, but.
Although long past his prime, the plan was for Nature Boy to keep the belt warm for a rapidly ascending Ultimate Warrior. On paper, the match between Savage and Flair should have been fine. The two had worked together on countless occasions, including a standout bout at WrestleMania 8. No one in the building then could have predicted the disaster that was about to happen. From back in the gorilla position, Vince McMahon watched in silence as the match unfolded. Producer Bruce Pritchard would later say that the chairman of the board was incessantly shaking his head. There was no spark to the match, no edge, just two legends stumbling through the motions. By the midpoint of the bout, things had turned messy, and the story Vince had scripted was falling apart. Then came a moment that showed exactly who was running the show. Bobby Heenan motioned to Howard Finkel, and the bell was rung. The live crowd sat stunned as both wrestlers, confused at the outcome, were waved off. Backstage, Vince was pacing, steam coming from his ears. When Flair and Savage walked through the curtain, they weren't prepared for what awaited them. Bret Hart recounts what happened next.
I just remember when Rick and Randy went out, when they came back through the curtain after the match, Vince went ballistic on both of them and told them that they had to go right back out and do the whole entire match over again the way he told them to do it, and that he was furious.
He was furious about it. Our chemistry wasn't good. Our work probably was considered average in this, and that's why he elected to start it over again. He wanted Randy to really be selling the leg, and I don't think he thought Randy was selling it enough. I certainly didn't think he was.
McMahon ordered the wrestlers to go straight back out and do the match over again, but this time exactly how he'd laid it out.
And they both walked right out. They started the match over again, and they had the whole intros again, and they did the whole match over again. They did this exact same match that they did 10 minutes before, and they didn't do any of the stuff, apparently, that Vince had specifically told them to do.
Unbelievably, the second try was even more disastrous than the first, and the crowd, having already seen the match once, barely even reacted. Not even a late intervention from Razor Ramon could save the bout. When the sorry charade finally ended, backstage, McMahon berated both wrestlers in a fit of rage that only ended when he told them to get the fuck out.
I can just remember Vince throwing his headset down when they came back through the second time, and he was like, just get out of here, you know. And I think that was the death knell for Rick. That was when they went, this guy can't do what we need him to do.
If you're a guy like me, you want the match to be perfect. But, you know, it's like, it takes two to tango.
The boss's fury had well and truly scorched the air. And if this was how he treated two of his biggest stars, what happened next, when a young Undertaker pushed his buttons, would show a side to Vince that few rarely see. Way before he became a dependable locker room leader and a self-appointed big dog of the yard, a green Undertaker found himself in Vince's crosshairs. It was the early 90s and the WWF was busy building Taker into an unstoppable force. The dead man was running through a steady parade of enhancement talent, all designed to make him look unbeatable heading into pay-per-view clashes with bigger names. Here's Taker describing the incident that led to his backstage showdown with Vince McMahon.
Back then, all the matches on TV were enhancement matches. And we were doing like 3-4 weeks of TV in a row. It was just getting your move set in, and then we go, and then we toured. You know, they would sometimes throw a lot of things against the wall, but at least they were going to give you opportunities, and they were actively trying to figure out what was going to be your niche, or what was going to be your deal. And I've got this kid, a local kid, looks like about 260 pounds, chewed bubble gum. This guy, he was awful, non-athletic, and he was nervous.
As the match went on, the dead man grew increasingly frustrated at what he saw as sloppy work. In a move he'd later come to regret, Taker went into business for himself.
Like, he screws up one move after another move after another move. I was young, I was a little immature. You know, I felt like this kid made me look bad. So I roughed him up a little bit. But then, it's just, that's the way it happened to me. I was a jobber. I got jobbed out by the Road Warriors. Anyway, so at the end of the night, it's been a long day. I come back through the curtain.
When The Undertaker made his way backstage, he found Vince waiting for him. The hallway went quiet as McMahon pulled Taker aside.
Vince is going off on me. And he said, "You feel good about yourself?" Well, you know, I'm young and I'm fired up, so I'm trying to defend myself. And now we're in this argument. It was just like quiet.
The chairman stood nose to chest with the 6'10" dead man and ripped into the superstar through clenched teeth. For a moment, the unstoppable phenom stood speechless while the boss read him the riot act. Vince's voice carried through the corridor, the same booming growl he'd later use on camera as Mr. McMahon. Only this time, it was deadly serious.
And then, dude, he hit another gear on me, and that's when he says, "You know what, perception is reality, and reality is everybody thinks you're an asshole right now."
The iconic line has gone down in wrestling folklore. Taker would later say, "He lit me up that day. I wasn't proud of what I'd done, and Vince let me know. Perception is reality."
He cussed, and I deserved that cussing. And I talked about it actually in my Hall of Fame speech. I do look like an asshole because this kid, obviously, he shouldn't have been in that situation. I should have been able to realize that. And especially during when we were getting our tails handed to us in the ratings and everything, man, it was the absolute worst.
It was a warning Taker never forgot. Years later, he told younger wrestlers, if Vince chews you out, listen. It means he still believes in you. The image of Vince jabbing a finger at someone as imposing as The Undertaker shows just how fearless and volatile he could be when something rubbed him the wrong way. 2 stories down, and we've already heard some of the wildest backstage clashes in WWF history. But one incident from behind the curtain stands out above all else. Not just for the fallout, but for the reaction that the altercation sparked, and the cold, ruthless way it was carried out.
Well, you know something, Mean Gene, the battleground of Madison Square Garden.
It's the summer of 1991. Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, the 2 biggest names in wrestling, are set to join forces. The event, SummerSlam 1991. On camera, the heroic pairing have been billed as a dream team. The Immortal and the Ultimate side by side against Sergeant Slaughter, Adnan and Mustafa. But unbeknown to fans, behind the scenes, trouble was brewing. And before the night is over, things were about to get wild. The Warrior, once the company's top attraction, is privately feeling betrayed. He's tired of being compared to Hulk Hogan, tired of being treated like a sidekick, and furious over a humiliating videotaped apology he'd been forced to record for a young fan. On July the 10th, just weeks before SummerSlam, Warrior sits down and writes Vince McMahon a letter. Handwritten and faxed to Titan Towers, the letter sets out a list of demands. $550,000 in back pay from WrestleMania 7, equality with Hogan's pay and perks, and a written guarantee that he'd be treated as an equal star moving forward. And if the demands aren't met, he warns that he'll be left with no choice but to stay home. 3 days later, Vince McMahon writes back. On paper, the letter reads like something that Warrior would be pleased to receive. The chairman was willing to play ball. But behind the scenes, and according to those who knew him best, Vince McMahon was seething.
Ultimate Warrior basically came to me and said, hey, I'm not going to go out and perform unless you pay me X number of dollars, and I forget how much it was. And that's so unprofessional. You just don't do that.
He'd agreed to Warrior's terms for one reason only, to make sure SummerSlam went off without a hitch. Those working the event that night have similar recollections of what transpired. A backstage tension that felt like a powder keg ready to blow.
What an ovation for the Ultimate Warrior! Is he ready? Yes!
Yes, but can he be trusted?
Vince McMahon came into my locker room and he said, well, the Ultimate Warrior is holding me up for $500,000 and he wants to be paid before he wrestles. Through the locker room door comes Hulk Hogan and he said, Sarge, you throw the Warrior out on the floor and I'll come into the ring and I'll jump on you and you and I'll head off to the corner. And while we're doing that, Cheeky, you jump down and you break his leg. And Vince went, no, whoa. I don't need a lawsuit on top of all this.
The main event goes ahead as planned. For all the talk of sabotage and tension, those involved keep things professional in the ring. But the real story begins when the match ends. As Warrior steps through the curtain, exhausted but triumphant, Vince McMahon pulls him aside. McMahon holds a letter of his own.
So as soon as he came out of the ring, I could not wait to fire him. I mean, it gave me great pleasure to fire him and to let him know why I was doing it.
The letter, which spells out the terms of a 90-day suspension, contains words that are deliberate, cold, and cutting. The fame you've obtained has gone to your head. You've become impossible to work with. But Hulk is a living legend, a bigger star, a bigger draw, more respected by the public, and far more dependable. The letter closed with one last shot across the bow. You've become a legend in your own mind.
I was standing next to Vince when Warrior came out of the ring. And Vince put his hand out and stopped him. He goes, "You're fired. Now get the out of my building."
The superstar's suspension proved what happened when you crossed Vince in private. But while the backstage area was very much McMahon's kingdom, the real world didn't offer the same level of comfort. What would happen when the boss of WWF was challenged in full public view? The answer would come on live television that showed the world exactly how angry Vince was capable of getting. By the early 2000s, Vince already had a reputation for turning talk show couches into battlefields. Whether it was ridiculing former WWF employees or snapping back at ex-stars, McMahon had proved time and time again that no host could out-argue him. He'd been challenged before, and every time, he'd come out swinging. But on this occasion, things would be different. Unlike his earlier appearances, Vince wasn't ready for what was coming, because across from him sat a veteran broadcaster known for calm persistence and knew exactly what buttons to press.
We asked McMahon about a few of the biggest names in the business who worked for his and other organizations. Do you have a reason why these people would be dying under the age of 45?
Why don't you ask yourself that question? I mean, why are you indicating that's my responsibility? These people are dead? Because
I'm asking you if it's in any way, shape, or form falls on your shoulders.
I would accept no responsibility whatsoever for their untimely deaths, none whatsoever.
The reporter presses Vince on whether WWE bear any responsibility. Vince's expression darkens.
And you've got that little look on your face like,
yeah,
geez, Vince, how can you possibly say that?
Well, but none whatsoever. I mean, they wrestled for you. They were part of your organization. They worked a couple of hundred nights a year for you. They lived this lifestyle.
Oh my God, you can't believe. Oh, can you see that look? I mean, how can you possibly say that, Vince? How can you look that way and you're giving me the old sympathetic
stuff? No, I'm not.
Vince's voice drops to a growl. It was a moment of pure, unscripted fury, the mask completely off.
I'm honestly curious.
Because I told you, these individuals worked for our organization at one time. They also worked for other organizations.
The world was now seeing what wrestlers had known all along. When Vince McMahon feels backed into a corner, he bites.
You want to let me finish here for a second, pal? Shut your mouth and let me answer the question, all right? I'll be happy to answer. You don't know what you're talking about.
But perhaps Vince McMahon's biggest bite took place away from cameras. 4 wild stories down, and now we've reached number 1. A story of ambition, betrayal, and the moment Vince McMahon's temper changed the course of wrestling history. Rewind to 1986. The WWF is riding high. Hulkamania is sweeping the nation, WrestleMania 2 is just weeks away, and the locker room is filled with stars. But behind the glitz and glory, one man is thinking about something that nobody in wrestling dared to say out loud. Enter Jesse the Body Ventura.
I don't take crap from no one. I'm an individual, and I didn't even take crap from him.
Well-respected wrestler, commentator, and Hollywood actor. He couldn't believe the difference between how Hollywood treated its performers and how wrestling did. No pension, no benefits, and no protection if you got hurt on the road.
There was definitely a need for a union in wrestling. That's what Jesse Ventura was trying to do.
Please welcome Jesse the Body Ventura.
Right before WrestleMania 2, Jesse was trying to start a union and undermine Vince.
Ventura decided to rock the status quo. Just before WrestleMania 2, he quietly gathered a group of wrestlers and made his pitch. According to Jesse's account, he stood before the men and told them that they didn't realize the power they have. If they all stood together, if they all refused to go out there, Vince can't replace them. He'd have to no-show.
WrestleMania 2, I stood up in a dressing room.
I'm here to make sure that Vince McMahon tells it like it is.
And I said, boys, now's the time to unionize. I said, all the publicity's gone out. All we have to do is stick together, go out to the press and say, we refuse to wrestle. Vince cannot run WrestleMania.
The room went silent. Some nodded. Some looked apprehensive. but everyone knew how dangerous it would be if word ever got back to the boss. And like clockwork, it did. The very next day, Ventura's phone rang. It was Vince McMahon. According to Ventura, Vince's voice was shaking with rage. He told me if I ever uttered the word union again, I'd be fired on the spot. In that instant, Vince McMahon snapped. The idea of a union inside his company on the eve of his biggest event was to him a declaration of war. Jesse would later say he'd never heard Vince so angry.
The whole thing was a sham, and quite frankly, no one in the locker room would ever get behind Jesse.
Within 24 hours, the union talk was gone and nobody brought it up again. McMahon's message to the locker room was crystal clear. Any challenge to his control would be met with backlash.
So what Vince would do, he called each wrestler one by one. He's like, I know about the meeting. Everybody that showed for the meeting would not have a job in the morning. So nobody showed up.
As time went on, one question haunted Ventura for years. How did Vince find out? Nearly a decade later, the truth finally came out. During Ventura's 1994 lawsuit against WWF for unpaid commentary royalties, Vince McMahon was questioned on the record.
In deposition, you can ask about anything. And so I wanted to know who ratted me in the locker room. And when my attorney said, Mr. McMahon, has there ever been a union in wrestling? Vince said, well, I think Jesse Ventura spouted his mouth off about it once before. My attorney said, did you hear Mr. Ventura? No. Well, then how do you know he did? With no hesitation, Vince went, Hulk Hogan told me.
Hulk Hogan double-crossed Jesse and ratted out all the guys that were trying to get a union going.
The revelation stunned Jesse. Hogan, his old tag team partner, the man who called him brother, had been the mole all along.
I almost tipped over in the chair because he was my friend. Hogan got paid more than all of us combined. Why would he want a union?
You know, I was on Vince McMahon's team all the way, so I went straight to Vince. I said, hey, Jesse, stirring shit up, man. You know, he's trying to start a union here, and next thing you know, you're going to have a bunch of wrestlers walk out on you in Madison Square Garden, and just want to let you know what's up.
Just one phone call dripping with rage was enough to consign the idea to the trash can of wrestling history.
When you know somebody isn't part of the family and they're very detrimental to your existence, there's that barbaric mentality of let's run them off, prove a point or teach them a lesson.
You saw what happened to my career. Even the great Jesse Ventura was cut loose because I stood up in a dressing room. That's what I did.
And there you have it. 5 times that Vince McMahon snapped. From forcing legends to redo their matches, to screaming at The Undertaker, to losing his cool on national television, firing a superstar, and finally, the day he crushed a union uprising with a single phone call. And most of the time, Vince presents himself as untouchable, the puppet master who always wins. But as these stories show, the man who famously refuses to sell can be worked into a shoot. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this look at the darker real-life side of wrestling history, give us a like and subscribe for more stories from the golden era.